Hello, so today I'm going to talk to you about the Ferrari Maranello. This is a two-seater GT produced between 1996 and the early 2000s. They made, I think, about 450, 460 of them in right-hand drive. And the example I'm going to show you today is a 1998 model in Argento Nürburgring silver with Bordeaux leather interior. I suppose I should really get out of the way and let you have a look at it. The 550 Maranello had a 5.5 litre V12 engine. This particular example has a Fiorano handling pack which basically lowered the suspension, I believe made it stiffer. The brake calipers were larger as well, and they were also painted red. The car's capable of producing 485 brake horsepower, 420 feet-pounds worth of torque, whatever that is, and is capable of getting you to about 200 miles an hour with a 0 to 60 time of about 4.3 seconds. Enough talking, let's go and see what the inside's like. So, you decided you want an F50. What do? Well, if you're someone that doesn't really know much about cars, like me, certainly not about Ferraris, having never owned one before, there are a few simple things that one can do. Obviously, now we live in the 21st century with this thing called the internet. You can spend a lot of time doing research online where very informative people will be able to tell you the do's and don'ts and whys and wherefores of ownership. You need patience. Certainly at the moment, we're now in July 2014, and the last time I looked there were 2 or 3 right-hand drive 550s for sale in the whole of the country. So obviously there's an issue there with the fact that, you know, if you want one now, you've only got a few to choose from. That's obviously pushed prices up a lot, so whereas maybe a year, 18 months ago you were looking at maybe £50,000-55,000 for you know, an average well looked after example with maybe between 30 and 40,000 miles on the clock, now you're looking more at, well, maybe 60-65,000. So not bad if you happen to own one, not so good if you're looking for one, but you know, in a way they're a good investment. They're the last fully manual Ferrari ever made, and I think they've now reached the bottom of their depreciation curve, and I think they will hold their value. I don't think you're ever going to make a lot from them, but I've taken the gamble that as long as I look after it properly, service it regularly, I can maybe come and sell it and get my money back, which at the end of the day has got to be a good thing. do, which I recommend, is to get a specialist to look at one for you. I've had that with a couple that turned out to, let's just say, not be what I was looking for until I settled on this particular example. And it's a 16, 17-year-old car, so it's not going to be perfect. But obviously you want to see, a full stamped service history. You want to see the MOTs, you want to see the tax discs, you want to know that the cam belts have been changed where necessary and that generally it's been looked after. It's the kind of car that people generally do look after. It's normally a second car used at weekends. The problem is obviously 4 or 5 years ago they were at the bottom of their depreciation curve, and therefore people could own them that maybe necessarily didn't want to or couldn't afford the associated costs, and that's what you've got to look out for. Getting a specialist to look over one of these will probably cost you about £300, £350, and it's well worth it, because obviously if you do buy one without having it properly checked over, you could have yourself in for many thousands of pounds in repairs, and you might find one that's maybe had a bad crash, or the sky's the limit as to what can be hidden. It might look good on the outside, but as we all know, you dig a little bit deeper and you look at the history and you can certainly find some gremlins in there. So it's definitely worthwhile and a peace of mind to have done, even if it turns out that once you've paid your money, your specialist comes back and says actually it's not a particularly good car, you've wasted £350 and you have to start again. But that's eminently preferable to obviously the other situation. Servicing costs go, you're probably looking at budgeting maybe £1,000–1,500 a year, if nothing major goes wrong. Really, you should have I believe, an oil change every year, and I mean that itself, it takes a huge amount of oil. So as you can imagine, that's a fair few £100s. And you want to keep on top of things. Obviously, it's a car that really deserves to be looked after properly, and I personally don't believe there's any point in having issues ongoing when you can get them fixed. So for example, the sort of perished thermocouple cable which is leading to my slow down light, which at this moment is still shouting at me, telling me the car's about to set itself on fire. I'm going to get that changed this week because it's annoying, even though the car runs fine. If it was a genuine slow down light, one bank of cylinders tends to get shut down, so obviously you notice immediately through the performance of the car and the sound that actually something is wrong, and obviously then that could well indicate that you have overheating catalytic converters, and that not surprisingly you should actually stop before the car explodes. And there are obviously other little niggles that need sorting out. The one problem is that again, the battery tends to run down, so if you don't keep it on a trickle charger, you can find that after a week of it just sitting in the garage, you can go to start it and the battery will be flat. This has a tracker on it as well, so of course that doesn't help, that drains the battery. So that's another little annoyance, I guess, and again maybe makes it not so much of a practical car, and the fact that, for example, you go on holiday and you leave it somewhere for a week without driving it, you get back in it, chances are it will have a flat battery. So, but nothing's perfect, we can't have everything, so it's just one of those little annoyances that you have to put up with, really. So overall, as I said, I've never owned a car like this before. I'm a pretty normal guy. It was one of those sort of midlife crisis things that one tries to, an itch that one tries to scratch. And overall, without tempting fate, I'm pretty happy. It's practical enough to use rain or shine, winter or summer. You can get the luggage in. It seems to be relatively reliable as Ferraris go, one of the more reliable models. It makes a nice noise. It looks I wouldn't say it's the most beautiful looking car, but it's certainly, I think, aged well. But on the other hand, it's not too shouty, it's not too show-offy, it's not too loud to annoy the neighbours all the time. So it kind of, it sits as a happy medium. Most importantly for me, it was the fact that I hoped that I could buy it and it would hold its value, because to me that's the most important thing. I don't mind so much the 10 or 15 miles to the gallon or the yearly servicing costs, but when you come to sell it, if you can get your money back, to me that's a very important thing. I'm more used to classic cars, and their key strength is the fact that you can own them and sell them and maybe even make some money. Apart from wincing when I fill up with petrol, it's great, you know, it's really good and it's relatively comfortable. You can drive it slowly as well. I had a fear that something like this, you just couldn't help yourself going quickly in it. It would just always want to be driven quickly. But I think because of the torque, you can drive it in certain ways as an automatic, because it will pull away. I think it will pull away from pretty much all the gears. And so that makes it, I don't know, a little bit more civilised. And obviously most of the time you don't want to hoon around, you don't, you just want to get from A to B, you want to go there comfortably, and this will do that. As I say, I haven't driven other Ferraris, so I've got no idea, but I imagine there may be, certainly the V8 are keener to go quickly and like an excited puppy or something. Whereas this is more of a sort of calm, middle-aged Labrador that you know, throw a bone and it'll run like hell for it, but otherwise it's quite content to just, you know, sit beside the fire.